the glittering heart of the 16th century Ottoman Empire, where marble palaces rose above the Bosphorus and minarets pierced the sky, loyalty was worth more than gold, and betrayal worth less than a life. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent ruled a world-spanning empire, but his reach extended only as far as trust allowed. In the corridors of Topkapi Palace, whispers could kill. The empire thrived on conquest and secrecy. Spies and informants roamed its courts and bazaars, serving sultans, viziers, and foreign kings alike. Yet one name would be burned into the chronicles of treachery: Fawzia of Damascus. Beautiful, cunning, and fluent in the tongues of Europe, she had once been a court interpreter. But ambition made her dangerous. She was accused of feeding state secrets to Venetian envoys, a crime punishable by death and humiliation. Her arrest came quietly, beneath the golden glow of lanterns in the Sultan's garden. Janissaries seized her in silence, their hands wrapped in silk to avoid bruising her, not out of mercy, but because the court demanded her punishment be seen by all, unspoiled and public. She was dragged before the Imperial Council, the divan where her fate awaited. Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha presided that morning. His eyes were cold as he unrolled the parchment detailing her supposed crimes. Fawzia denied nothing at first, her voice steady, her gaze unflinching. But in the Ottoman Empire, innocence was not proven by words. It was proven by endurance, and so the court sentenced her to interrogation by ordeal. The chamber beneath Topkapi Palace was no courtroom. It was a dungeon of iron hooks and smoking braziers, where the air stank of rust and sweat. Chains hung from the ceiling like serpents, and the sound of dripping water echoed through the dark. 2 guards strapped Fawzia to a wooden frame, her arms spread wide, her feet bound. She did not scream when the first lash fell, but by the 10th, her breath came in sobs. The punishment was as much theatre as justice. Each strike of the whip was meant to draw out not only confession but fear in those who watched. Her flesh broke beneath the leather, her blood darkening the floor. Between blows, the interrogator, a silent man known only as Kara Hassan, pressed a heated iron seal against her shoulder. The smell of burning skin filled the air as the imperial emblem branded her forever as a traitor to the Sultan. Still, Fawzia refused to name her accomplices. Whether her silence came from loyalty or defiance, no one could tell. To her tormentors, both were crimes. When her strength faltered, buckets of salt water were poured over her wounds and the whipping resumed until she fainted. When she awoke, she was told her punishment had only begun. The Sultan himself had decreed that traitors should be paraded through the streets before execution, a warning to any who might trade Ottoman secrets for foreign gold. That night, guards washed her wounds roughly, dressed her in torn linen and bound her hands with iron chains. Her face was pale, her eyes distant, but she stood on her own when they led her from the dungeon. Outside, torches flickered, casting shadows that danced like ghosts upon the palace walls. As dawn rose over Istanbul, Fawzia the spy was led through the city's heart, from the palace gates to the Grand Bazaar, a living symbol of betrayal. Behind her marched the Janissaries, their boots striking the cobblestones in rhythm with the drums of public justice. Crowds gathered, some shouting curses, others watching in silence. Children peeked from windows, merchants crossed themselves. Her every step left a trail of blood. The brand on her shoulder glowed red against her torn garment, yet she did not lower her head. She walked as if she carried her sentence like a crown, and in that moment even her executioners hesitated, for the condemned had become something greater than fear itself, a woman unbroken by empire. But in the Ottoman world, defiance had a price. The streets whispered her name as she passed, but by nightfall those whispers would turn to screams. The torture of Fawzia the spy was far from over. Her final ordeal was yet to come. Fawzia awoke to the sound of 1,000 whispers. The great stone hall of judgment loomed before her, vast, echoing, and gilded with symbols of Ottoman might. Guards in crimson robes stood motionless, their scimitars glinting under the torchlight. The air smelled of incense and fear. At the far end of the chamber sat the Pasha himself, veiled in gold cloth, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. She was dragged before him, her wrists bound by chains that clinked like the rhythm of death. A scribe dipped his quill into ink as the Pasha's voice thundered, "Fawzia bint Khalil, you stand accused of spying for the Venetians. Confess your crime, and your suffering will end swiftly." The words bounced against the marble walls, cold and final. Fawzia lifted her bruised face. "I spied for no one," she whispered. "I only sought letters from my brother." The Pasha's lips curved into a thin smile, not of amusement, but certainty. He gestured toward the torturer, a man known only as Al-Rahim the Extractor. His hands were thick, his eyes empty. "Then," said the Pasha, "let the truth be persuaded." Chains rattled as Fawzia was taken to the iron rack. Her back pressed against splintered wood, her limbs stretched tight. The torturer turned the wheel slowly, each rotation drawing out a cry that echoed like a broken prayer. Bones creaked, muscles tore. Still, she refused to yield. Her silence angered the court. Her defiance shamed the guards who watched. The Pasha ordered a branding. Heated irons were brought forth, each carved with the symbol of the empire, the crescent moon and star. As the metal glowed red, the torturer pressed it against her shoulder. The hiss of flesh filled the hall, mingled with the scent of burnt skin. Fawzia bit her lip until blood ran down her chin, but not a confession left her mouth. Word of her torment spread through the palace. Some whispered she was truly innocent, a scapegoat caught in the web of men's politics. Others called her a liar who had brought ruin upon soldiers. Yet to the Pasha, the truth mattered less than the message her suffering would send. The empire could forgive thieves, deserters, even assassins, but never traitors. Days passed in agony. She was given no food, only water laced with vinegar. When her wounds festered, they were burned clean with salt and fire. At night, she dreamt of the Bosporus waves, of freedom, of her mother's voice singing her childhood lullabies. Each dawn brought another test, another chance to break. Finally, her body could no longer resist. Her breathing became shallow, her gaze distant. The court physician examined her and declared she had only hours left. Yet the Pasha gave one last order. She was to be paraded before the people of Constantinople, a warning to all who dared deceive the empire. As dawn's light spilled across the city's domes, Fawzia was lifted from her cell. Her branded shoulder gleamed in the morning sun. The crowd awaited her, chanting curses and prayers alike. The torturers tied her to a wooden cart and began the slow procession through the cobbled streets. Bells rang in the distance, a cruel symphony for a dying spy. Her lips trembled, but she did not cry out. Somewhere within the pain she found a strange peace. She had lost everything, her dignity, her body, yet she had kept her truth. And as the cart rolled toward the gallows, Fawzia raised her head toward the sky, whispering a final prayer that no one but the wind could hear. The streets of Constantinople were alive with the cruel rhythm of curiosity. Drums beat slowly, echoing through the bazaars, as merchants, beggars, and soldiers crowded the path. The air carried the scent of roasted spices, sea salt, and death. Fawzia, barely conscious, sat bound on a wooden cart pulled by two black oxen. Her tattered garments clung to her bruised skin, her branded shoulder gleaming like a scarlet mark of treason. The guards beside her carried spears tipped with crimson silk, the color of betrayal. Children clung to their mothers' robes, pointing at the woman who had sold secrets to the Venetians. Men shouted curses, some spat at her feet. But among the crowd a few bowed their heads. They knew her story, a translator, a poet's daughter, swept up in court intrigue she could never have escaped. The cart stopped before the imperial gate, where the Pasha waited with his court scribes. His robe shimmered with gold thread, his expression betrayed no emotion. The sentence was to be completed here, before the eyes of the empire. The torturers lifted Fawzia from the cart, her body trembling like a withered leaf in the wind. She was forced to kneel upon the marble floor. A herald unrolled a scroll and read aloud her crimes: espionage, blasphemy, deceit against the Sultan. His voice rang across the square. For betrayal of the Ottoman state, Fawzia bint Khalil is condemned to death by scourging and hanging. Let her agony cleanse her deceit. The first lash cracked through the air like thunder. Blood splattered against the white stone. Each stroke tore open old wounds until her back became a river of red. But Fawzia did not scream. Her silence defied the Pasha's will, unsettling those who watched. Even the torturers faltered, their hands heavy with dread. When at last she collapsed, the hangman approached. A noose of coarse rope was placed around her neck, its fibers rough and frayed. The crowd fell silent. Only the sea's wind whispered across the plaza. As the executioner pulled the lever, Fawzia's body jerked once, twice, and then stilled. Her lifeless form swung gently under the morning sun, a tragic silhouette against the domes of the city. The Pasha turned and walked away without a word. To him, justice had been served. Yet that night, whispers spread through the palace. Servants claimed her spirit lingered near the judgment hall, her soft voice repeating, "I was loyal." Some said her blood-stained brand refused to fade from the marble where she had knelt. Over the years, her story became both warning and legend. Mothers told their daughters of Fawzia the spy, the woman who met death with silence, whose truth outlasted her torturers. And though her name was erased from records, her tale survived in the songs of sailors and the prayers of poets. In the heart of the old city, where the air still carries echoes of empire, a faint mark remains on the stone. They say it's the print of a woman's hand, reaching toward heaven, defying the cruelty of men who mistook justice for power. Subscribe the channel for more interesting content like this.